A person of extraordinary intellect and talent, a person who has great influence over another, a wise man, a shaman, a prophet. I have had the data, had that for a while, but now you are here in person. Now I'm looking at you. You don't work too hard. That's clear, a sense of humor, but nothing with edge. You used to be a sportsman. Cricket, football, huh? But that's been dropped. Your shirt's a bit tied round the sides. You've put on weight recently. You like things to be simple. Fish fingers, chips. Don't like posh food. You're that sort of man. Yes, chicken nuggets and pizza, ketchup, beans, children's food. You haven't cut your fingernails properly. Tells me you're self-employed. Yes, good. So, me, come on, Steve. Who am I? Am I what you expected? Mrs. Andrews keeps me company. She's blessing. Problem is, she loves me. Those eyes. I tell her, Mrs. Andrews, it's your age. It's prohibitive. I know why you're here, and I'm not interested. Could have told you over the phone. Now this is a very fine single malt. Should I be drinking at my age at this time in the afternoon? You're thinking you're not a whiskey drinker. Are you, Steve? Not really. You are, or you're not. Mrs. Andrews, let me explain. Steve is worried about his wife. Now I haven't spoken to any of my daughters for 20 years. They don't like me. They're doing their own things. My eldest in the environment secretary. My youngest is at university. And Freya. What she does, I don't know. She's pregnant. Does that count? She helps deaf children or something. But quite strangely, one evening, Steve got home and found his wife had gone. Where? Well, he eventually discovered that she had gone on a train and come up to Scotland to talk to her dad. And yes, we spoke. You gave her fruitcake. Very appropriate in retrospect, because after she got home, she wouldn't tell her husband what we spoke about. He knew where she had been, but Freya refused to talk. She wouldn't even say why she went in the first place. I presume she's become unhappy, confused. Right, so then even more strangely, Steve decides to fake a business trip and come and talk to me himself, not realizing, of course, that if he needs to do that, then there's much bigger issues at stake. Like me, what I said to her, but why she won't talk to you, why you're sneaking up here without telling her. I'm in two minds as to what to say. Mrs. Andrews, Steve come all this way, but do I betray the trust of my daughter and get involved, or do I keep my mouth shut for once? The problem is, Steve, that is in fact all of about my books. If you want an answer, you will have to understand some science. You will have to listen, and it won't be humorous. It's very interesting, but there aren't any laughs. Can you deal with that? Everything in the planet is codependent. It exists, is ever changing, ever evolving, balanced much like a gigantic organism itself. Species live and die and evolve, and the planet evolves too, through the cycles of hot and cold, and responding to the demands of life, and the life responds to the demands of the planet. But the problem is global warming. There is a keen brain under all the global warming. Yes, you know how that works. Of course you do. You've seen Blue Peter, and people draw their graphs. They show the rise of temperature. They show a small but steady rise. They say it can be limited, you know, by how much? 2 degrees, as long as we recycle and insulate our homes. I expect you've done that too. Of course you have. I'm sure you've got a bag for life and all that makes you feel better. I know, but it's a complete waste of time because the global climate has never been interested in 2 degree anything. If we look at geological records of historical climate change, the onset of the last ice age, for instance, we were there is too steady climb, no year-by-year increase. There it is in fact a relatively stable climate system. And then something happens. The system is stretched, and in a moment it collapses and changes in hundreds, not a thousand of years. You understand? Let's imagine this home is a planet. What regulates the climate? Mrs. Andrews, when the house is too hot, she opens the window. When it's too cold, she switches on the heating. She brings a new material to eat or drink, and she removes the waste when I'm done. She cleans the air and the ground, and she regulates my life. Don't you? We are symbiotic. She would not exist without me. I could never live without her. But she's very unhappy at the moment, Steve. Because when the population is doubled like this, her system are stretched. The house get hot, quicker food, drink are consumed twice at rate. The floor is twice as dirty. She's under pressure. Oh, it's a relative increase in her anger. Can you detect a slow rise in her temperament? No, she's stable, she's holding it together. But there will come a day, if you stay too long, Steve, when the system's been stretched too far, and she'll snap suddenly. She'll take away your sofa. She'll hide the food, leave the heating on. She'll steal your phone and spit in your drink. She'll do everything in her power to remove the problem, to remove you, and she will succeed, Steve. You will be gone because she's stronger than any of us. We are part of the system relationship. We abused it. The world will be fine in the end, and it knows what it wants. It wants to get rid of us. There is a nest industry, red wings, beautiful pattern. They were the reason I moved here. I found the birds, bought the house nearby. The birds were endangered and the climate change was the cause apparently. So I thought they would be my barometer, like the ravens in the tower. When they leave, it's over. They said rising temperature. We're driving elsewhere. If you want to understand these things, you have to look at the entire system, the mountains, the animals, the air, The sea, it's infinitely complicated, Steve, but that's what I do. I stay in that shed and I try to see the future. Every model suggests things are going to be worse than anyone imagines. I have seen something terrible. People say they want the truth, facts, and figures, but actually they want to be told it can be avoided with minimum effort. When Neville Chamberlain came back from Hitler, he said he had a peace treaty, that he could trust this obviously evil man. Why did he believe it? Why would we believe it? Because he had to us, or had be facing untold horrors. Always, Steve, face will come before truth. That's who we are. Everyone has said, if you have a child, you will change. You will know what to do. Everything will fall into place. And so I went onto the hospital on the day you were born, and there was your mum sat in the bed, and she gave you to me to hold, and I looked at you, and I waited for that moment when I would feel like a father. The moment everyone spoke about, when I would love you completely above anything else. But it wasn't happening. I looked over at your mom and she smiled. It had happened for her. I looked down at you. Still nothing. So I looked up at your mom and smiled back. And right then, I started pretending. A few years later, we had Freya and Jasmine, and every moment, all the time, I wasn't a father. I never felt it. But now, she is gone. Now your mother's dead. There is no reason to pretend. She was the one I loved. Just her. It is said that in the old times, in the early years of the 21st century, mankind only thought of himself. The people would steal from the land and plunder the seas. They would kill the animals, tear out the minerals from the ground, and poison the sky. And as the earth grew darker, the sun burned brighter, and the sea began to rise. The people simply closed their eyes and drank and danced and attempted to ignore their certain destruction. It was then, in mankind's greatest hour of need, that Solomon came, a young woman, accompanied only by one faithful companion, packed her bag and came to the city of London. After 3 days walking barefoot, she arrived on the bridge across the river at the center of the earth, and she spoke. Her words proclaimed the new enlightenment. She was young and so full of hope and truth that her speech, her words, the power and delight was relayed, repeated across the world by radio, by television, by powerful rumor, and written instruction to every man and woman on the planet. And slowly, slowly, the tide turned. People listened and people changed. Solomon spent the rest of her life traveling the world, walking a new path, showing us the future, a new way to live. And the people of the world were happy. They were saved and they rejoiced.